In this video, we are setting up the notes for page 24. And this is talking about using drawings and equations to add. So I'm just going to take a quick look here and see exactly what they're wanting me to do. Okay, I see. So I think rather than do two separate videos here, I'm just going to add the notes as we go. So if you open your reference notebook, the last page we did was this set of notes where we talked about ways to do addition. So on the next blank page, I want you to call this page, let me think of a good title. Let's just use the one they used. Using models and equations. And I touched on this a little bit on that last lesson when we were doing the problem about the family driving. And I told you that when I have one of those, I always draw it. That's sort of the concept here. We're going to use some drawings to help us understand some problems. So let's just set that page up and then we'll come back to it in a second. I'm on page 24 and we need to read here. There are different ways to solve addition word problems. And a word problem is a story problem where the problem tells you a story and you have to set up your own math problem. One way is to draw a picture. Drawing a bar model can help you make sense of a word problem. Another way is to write an equation. So let's take a look at this first word problem, and I need to read it. 451 people voted for a dog park. 227 people voted against the dog park. How many people voted? Draw a bar model and write an equation to solve. Use a question mark to represent the unknown part of the problem. Now I need to do something. Bear with me just a second because I cannot remember this long enough to do what I need to do. So I'm going to take a quick screenshot and then let's go to our notebook. You do not need to copy this. I'm going to show you what you need to write. I just need this to help me stay straight. Okay, so they told us that 451 people voted for the dog park. So that's yes. They asked the neighborhood, do you want a dog park? 451 said yes. 227 said no. And they want to know how many people voted. But they tell me to draw a bar model and write an equation and to use a question mark to represent the unknown part of the problem. So here's how I'm going to draw it. I will tell you that mine will not look just like theirs, but mine's easier to draw. So let's take a second and think. Which of those groups of people was larger? Was it the yes group or the no group? It was the yes group. So I'm going to draw a bar. I'm going to try to draw a bar. I don't know what all that is. I'm going to make a bar right here. So here's a bar. This is going to be my yes group. And then I'm going to make another bar that will be my no group, and I'm going to put it right in here if I can. It doesn't have to be exact, but it should make sense. We know that the yes group is bigger, and we know that those are 451. Those are the yeses. And we know that 227 were the no's. They want us to figure out how many people voted. In other words, if you take the yeses and you take the no's and you put those together, how many people do you have in all together? So this is a bar model. That's what they're calling a bar model. The equation would look like this. 451 plus 227 equals an unknown number. They told us to use a question mark for the unknown. And then we need to solve it. So I'm going to use the algorithm method. It would help if I got the right numbers written down. And so let's add the ones column, add the tens column, and add the hundreds column. So my equation will be 451 plus 227. And remember, an equation means that two sides are equal. They're the same. So my answer is 678 people voted. And that thing is called a bar model. These are very helpful to understand a problem, especially as the problems get harder. So this is our first example, and we do have an answer. Let's go back and check our answer to see if it's right. They did a bar model just like we did, and here's their answer. Matches ours. Okay, here's another example. Tina drove a total of 302 miles over 2 days. On Monday, she drove 117 miles. How many miles did she drive on Tuesday? Which bar model represents the problem? Well, before I pick one of theirs, I'm going to draw one of mine. And you don't have to write all this. I'm just going to copy it, take it back to my notebook, and put it down here for the moment. And we will draw a model on scrap paper. And I think I'm going to do this so we don't get these all mixed up. I'm just going to section off that one, and then we'll do this problem. So we know that she drove a total of 302 miles. So let's write that down. I want you to write that with me. We know that on Monday, she drove 117 miles. And the question is, how many miles did she drive on Tuesday? That is the unknown amount. So, I'm going to draw a bar. And this time I know the total. So I'm going to draw the whole bar. We know the whole bar is how much? 302 miles. You could use a number line here as well instead of the bar. And then I'm going to split that bar into the 2 days. They told me Monday, so let's draw this one and say Monday was 117, And here's Tuesday. Remember, Tuesday is the question mark. That's the unknown in my equation. So what would the equation look like? It would be, if you wrote it in word form, you would say that Monday plus Tuesday equals 302 miles. And we know what Monday was, so let's cross that out and put its number in there. We know that 302 would be the answer, but we don't know the question mark. We don't know what Tuesday is. And that, my friends, is an algebra problem. Anytime you have a question mark, you're doing algebra. So here's our equation, and let me reread it. They just want us to pick the bar model. We do not have to solve this problem. So I'm looking for a bar model that is something like this. So let's go back to our choices. And let's see, I like D. Because remember when we did our own, let me go ahead and highlight that one. This is our answer right here. Because we knew the total. That's the total. We knew Monday, but we did not know Tuesday. So D is the bar model we want. We do not have to figure this one out because it involves subtraction, and we haven't covered that yet. But we do have to pick the correct bar model. Hint: when you read a word problem, think about what information is given, and that's what you will circle, and what information is missing. Where's the question mark? Where's the piece that you don't know? In this problem, we were given those two numbers, but our question mark was Tuesday. And that's what makes an algebra problem. The question mark is the unknown. All right, let's go to page 25 and see what we have here. It says to use the bar model to answer questions 1 and 2. So let's study this model closely. We have two known numbers. We know a number of tulips, and we know a number of roses. I can tell you that the roses, actually let me do it this way. The roses are much bigger than the number of tulips. What we do not know is the total. We do not know the full bar amount. The total is what we're missing. Now we could find it if we needed to. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's take the 455, the roses, and the 103, the tulips, and let's add those. So these are my roses, and these are my tulips, and that gives me a total of 558 flowers. So that 558, that was the question mark, we have found. The 455 is the roses, and the 103 is the number of tulips. Which problem does the bar model show? City florist ordered 455 flowers? No, we can stop right there. City florist ordered 558 flowers. So that's not the answer we want. city florist ordered 103 tulips. That's true. And some roses. Well, that would be question mark roses, and we know the number of roses. So that is not the story we're looking for. City florist ordered 103 tulips. That's true. And 455 roses. That's true. How many flowers were ordered? We found that. This is the story we're looking for. City florist ordered tulips and roses. How many tulips were ordered? We don't have to work for that information. That number is given to us. So the bar is showing us this story. It's telling us about this scenario. C. You're picking the story that goes with the picture. And we've already done number 2. What is the missing amount? Well, we added it together and we got 558. That's the missing amount. D as in dog. Number 3, I'm going to bring this one over to the notebook and we'll do the problem and then we'll come back here. So I just need to copy it. You have your notebook and your everything all together, but I have to switch between them. So sorry about that, but it is what it is. So let me draw a line and we will start working on this problem. Some people went to the movies. 226 of them, 226, saw an action film. And this is where I make mistakes. I read one number and I write a different one. I have dyslexia, and that is part of the problem. 226 saw action films. 315 saw a comedy. How many people went to the movies? So this time I do not know a total. I have 2 different bars. I have the smaller bar is going to be the people who went to see action movies. And then the other bar is going to be the people who saw the comedies. And there were a few more of those. So I always try to make my pictures realistic as best I can. They don't have to be perfect, but just they need to make sense. So 226, we have action movies. And then 315, we have comedy movies. And I forgot to write something very important. My question mark. The question is, how many people went to the movies? So with that in mind, let's study our bar. The thing that we need to know is the total. We need to know what is this amount up here. Total number of people. And total means add. So I would do 226 plus 315. And that would give me my question mark. So let's do this math. We know how to do addition. I'm using the algorithm model. So that's 11. I carry 1. Then 1, 2, 3, 4. And 5 down here. So my equation would be 226 plus 315 equals 541. And we always want to use our unit. That's people went to the movies. Or you could just say 541 people. And when we go back to our answer choices, there it is. 541 people went to the movies. Number 4. 200 homes were sold in April. 175 homes were sold in May. You want to know the number of homes sold during the 2 months. Which equation matches the problem? So let's come back to our examples and add a space for this one. And you don't have to copy this. You can if you want. You can pause the video. But I'm just going to set it right here for the moment. And let's start breaking it down. We have 200 homes sold in April. And 175 homes sold in May. And the question is the number of homes in 2 months, in those 2 months. So let's make a model to represent our thinking. I'll take that away. And I'm going to draw my bars. I'm going to draw 2 of them. And I can tell you that they're close to the same size, but they're not exactly the same size. So let me just go ahead and draw another one. And we will figure out which is which. The bigger one is going to be the 200 because 200 is greater than 175. So the smaller one will be the 175 in May. And I need to put my bars together. We need to make this connection right here because that is what will tell me the total. What is that 2-month total that we're looking for? That's the question mark. So my equation could be 200 plus 175 is the question mark. It could also be 175 plus 200 is the question mark, because with addition, the order doesn't matter. So let's find the answer. Let's take the 200, the 175, and put them together and add the ones, the tens, and the hundreds. So that question mark is no longer an unknown. It is 375 in both of those equations. And the answer, the unit, is homes sold in 2 months. So let's go back and look at our choices. We don't have to solve, we have to pick the equation. And the one we want is right here. We had to find the question mark. We had to find the total. All right. Number 5. There are 138 cars in a parking garage. Let me get a copy of that while I can. Another 117 cars enter the garage. How many cars are in the garage now? So let's mark this one up using our problem-solving method. How many cars are in the garage now? And we have two important numbers. So let's take this problem back to the notebook and let's work it out using the model. And let me remind you, on a test, you do not have to draw the model. This is just to help you if you need it. So we have 138 cars that were in the garage, so I'm going to say that they were parked. Then 117 cars enter the garage. They pull in the garage. And so the question is, how many cars are in the garage now? So you can get rid of the word problem. We got what we needed. And I'm going to draw my bars. So I have 138 and 117. Those are pretty close numbers, but not exactly the same. So there's the 138, and then let me draw another one for the 117. We'll make it a little bit smaller, and then we're going to put those together. And just that act of putting them together gives me a clue as to the type of math it is. Putting things together is either adding or multiplying. And since we have two different numbers, it's going to be add. So that's the number of cars that enter. We're looking for the total number of cars now. So our equation will be 138 plus 117 equals some amount. 138, 117 is 15, carry 1, 3, 4, 5, and 2. So my finished equation is 138 plus 117 equals 255 cars now. And that should be the answer we're looking for. And sure enough, there it is. Okay. Use the information to answer questions 6 and 7. 492 people went to a concert on Friday. 325 of the people paid full price. The rest of the people had discounted tickets. How many people had discounted tickets? So, I'm going to take this problem over to the notebook because this is not an easy one. No word problem is easy. Let me take a screenshot and then we'll mark up our problem so we know what we're looking for. The question, you may have already highlighted yours. How many people had discounted tickets? So the clue that I'm looking for is discounted. That's where my question's going to be. And then I have two other numbers. I have the 492 and I have the 325. So let's go to our book. This will be the last one because I'm running out of room. But this one's a Lulu. So let's be careful You want to work carefully, but follow that same procedure that you know. We know that 492 people went to the concert. We know that 325 of them paid full price. And our question is how many people paid a discounted price? So once you have the bare bones of your problem, you can get rid of the words. And then let's focus on what we know. This time we know the total. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the full bar, and I'm going to label that appropriately. The total was 492. And a big chunk of them paid full price. 325 paid full amount for the tickets. But the rest of them got a discount. And that's our question mark. How many of those people got a discount? So we could say that 325 plus that unknown amount equals the total group. We don't know the discounted group yet. So let's go back to our questions and see what they're wanting us to do. Which equation matches the problem? Well, it's this one. And let me bring ours over here. Bear with me just a second. I'm going to take a picture of our equation that we wrote because it doesn't really look like the one over here exactly. So I need to make sure, first of all, that you understand what's going on here. This is the equation that I wrote with your help. Let me highlight it a certain way. I have my 325 and my question mark together, just like this one. And then I have my total on the other side, just like this one. And I have an equal sign between them. So our equation, which is this one, and their equation match. They're the same thing. You can move things around an equal sign as long as your pieces match. So the 325 plus the question mark is together, and then the 492 is on the other side of the equal sign. So it's fine to flip it around as long as you don't move your pieces around. Okay. Now, number 7, I was wondering how they were going to make this work out. Because the easiest way would be to subtract here, but we haven't covered subtraction yet. Number 7 is a hard problem. It's algebra, and it's forcing us to think through this. So I'm going to take my equation that I wrote, and instead of the question mark, I'm going to put a box. And that's fine. You can do that instead of the question mark. The missing number. What goes in that box? All right, we could also write it this way. We could say the 492 is equal to the 325 plus the unknown. Remember, we can flip that equation around as long as we don't separate Let me keep it consistent. We keep those two together. And then the 492 all by itself, we're fine. We can do that. Okay, so let's eliminate some answers. Look at A. Look at where the 492 is. It has to be by itself. So A is not the answer we're looking for. B, the 492 is not by itself, so that is not the answer we're looking for. All right, 492 in C and D by itself, so either of those could be the correct possibility. The 325 is in both of them, and it's being added. So the question is, which of these boxes is the right box? Which of those is the one I'm looking for? So let me, and if this problem is confusing to you, it's okay. It's a hard problem. So what we need to do, I'm going to change colors for C. I'm going to add 325 and 167 and see what I come up with. So that would be 12, carry 1. That would be 9 and then 4. Then let's do 325 and that second box, which is 165. So these are the boxes, the 167 and the 165. Okay, this one comes up to 490. And that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for 492. So the answer we want is C. And goodness, what a problem. If you're struggling with that one, don't feel bad. It's okay. You will get plenty of practice later. Just move on. It's okay. If you understand that problem, pat yourself on the back because it is not an easy problem. Okay, finally, and I ran out of room, didn't I? Okay, so I'll have to work this one right down here. Well, we've already got a model. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups. What is the missing amount? Question is what's missing, or what is the question mark? All right, 224 is the total. We know that this is our total. That's the whole shebang right there. We know that. We know the question mark goes with these chocolate chip cookies. That sounds good right now, doesn't it? And then we know that the 104 goes with sugar cookies. That sounds good too. So we are looking for the number of chocolate chip cookies out of total cookies. So let's write an equation. We know that the question mark, the chocolate chips, plus the sugars give me a total of 224 cookies. So that's our equation. Let's put a box in here. I can do that for a question mark. You can always put a box in. And I happen to know that that box is that pink number. That's the chocolate chip cookies. The sugar cookies are the 104. We know that. And we know the 224 is our total. So we're looking for the number of chocolate chip cookies that this could be. So the first choice is 100. So let's put 100 in there and see if that's true. So if I put 100 in the box, let me do it this way. Let's plug that 100 in and see if it's true. So we have 100 plus 104 is 204, not 224. So that's not the box we're looking for. That's not it. Unfortunately, it's not. So let's try the next one. Let's put another box in there and look at option B. B says 120 chocolate chip cookies. So let's plug it in there and see if it works. So 120 plus 104 is, look at that, 224. That's the one that works. I'm going to go ahead and move it down here because I want to show you the others, but we know that's our answer. And I'm not doing very well with the cutting and pasting, but bear with me here. So we know this is it. We can go ahead and say that it's 120 right here. But let's try the others just so you get some practice doing this. Let's put 228 in the box. That's choice number C. So let's see if this one pans out. I'm going to move over here. So we know 228 plus 104. That's 12, carry 1, that's 3, and 3. That's way too big. So that one will not make the equation true. Let's move it down here. And then we'll move to our last choice. You are doing algebra. So if you've always been afraid of algebra, don't be. You're doing it now. Let's put the 328 in. And if this is not making any sense to you, don't worry. It will in time. Just do what you can. Remember, you can always talk with your teacher. So 328, 104, carry 1, and that is way too big. So the answer we want is this 120, and I'm going to go ahead and make the equation true. I'm going to bring this down here and bring the 120 back up here. Let's take the word yes off and then bring the 120 back up here. That question mark is 120. That's the only thing that would make this equation true. So that's our answer right there. Okay, these are getting more difficult as we move through. We still have the workbook pages to do. So if you're rusty or if you're still feeling a little bit wobbly on these, we'll do those in the workbook pages. And I'll see you in that video.